All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to important conversations with people who are leading thinkers in today and going forward. I'm so thrilled to have Ali Love join us today. I'm really fortunate to have opportunities to travel in a bit of a circle and that's broad. And Ali and I were like chatting beforehand, and we were just getting right in it, right, Ali?
Yeah.
And we said, wait a minute, let's just save this for the conversation. So we're just going to wait a couple of minutes to give people an opportunity to get into the conversation, and then we'll get started.
Sounds good. I do want to say, Edith, thank you so much for having me while we're waiting for people to join us. I think and not to get too much into our story, because I'm sure we're going to kind of weave that in as we create this narrative, this conversation, but I will say you have left a lasting impression on me from the first time we met. And we're friends of friends, and that's how we've gotten connected. But I just wanted to say thank you. I don't think I've thanked you enough after our first meeting, where I think about you often and in times of decision making of what would you do, like knowing your story, knowing how hard you work, some of the, and as we were talking about being real in some of our wins, but also some of our quote unquote misses, and how you've been so transparent, even in that short amount of time, like an hour and a half, has stuck with me. So I do want to say thank you.
Well, I'm inspired by always learning and changing and evolving, and I got a lot out of the conversation as well, and so appreciate you for who you are and the exciting things ahead. I'll just tell everybody the plant situation, like this is how we are of like mind. We didn't talk about our plants, but we knew we had to have them. So
yeah. And we're twinning right now, like the hair, the lipstick.
I know. Did you hear that? Everyone, the youthful world.
That's how you know you vibe with someone. It's almost like when you, and they talk about it a lot on TV, when all of a sudden you and your best friend comes out of the house and you have on similar outfits, or when your partner comes out and you look exactly the same going out for an event. So I feel like the vibe, the connection of how we're going to set the stage is already
exactly. Well, let's get started, and welcome to those that are joining as we do. For me, an opportunity to have conversations with people who are outside of my day-to-day is inspiring. And in this time in particular, where we are all under siege, we're under siege from COVID, we're under incredible amount of anger, frustration, and sorrow, given the deaths of too many Black people. These are opportunities for us to, continue to think through and expand our horizons. And I'm really thrilled to have Ali today join us in the conversations. I spend a lot of time talking to leaders across a number of different industries. And in the months back, one of those leaders was Ali, actually. I want to just take a moment just to highlight, that Ali is a CEO. And CEO perspectives really matter. She's a founder, CEO. She's I have to read it, it's so long. Let's see, what do we have here? She's the arena host of the Brooklyn Nets, a Peloton instructor, an adidas brand ambassador, a model, and just someone who always emanates joy and endurance and perseverance. So welcome, Ali. For people who are getting to know you, although I'm sure so many on the call do, can you just tell us about your journey a bit? You've made a lot of different steps in your career, but if you could just how these things came about, that would be a great place to start.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, Edith, for having me. I'm excited to have these conversations. I will say these conversations are so pivotal. We are in a time where I mentioned to you, Edith, prior to hopping on, that right now information and accessibility is so available and free, which is so important. I will say it's important to me, which is why I started Love Squad, which is where I'm the CEO and founder. It was out of a sheer frustration and lack of resources as a young woman. I grew up in New York. I'm in Miami. I moved to New York, came here for college. During that time, I'm a part of a small family. During that time, I started dancing. At 9 years old, I got hit by a car. And I almost lost my life. And it was, I would say, a turning point. And I can only say that it was a turning point because it relates to this concept of frustration and lack of resources and leaning into education. At 9 years old, I was on my hospital bed, and my mom, the doctor said it's not looking good. And my mom came up to me and offered me the responsibility that I'm not sure I would at this point in life be able to offer a 9-year-old. But she was very honest and candid and letting me know that this was a life or death situation. And if I wanted to live, that I needed to fight. And if I wanted to die, that was okay too. But there was an ultimate moment that she let me know that at 9 years old, I needed to make a decision. And not making a decision was making a decision. And she said, whatever decision you make, I'm going to support you. And now, again, looking at that as something that was so difficult and so challenging, I look back and I say that shaped my entire life. From that moment on, I have chosen my life. I've chosen to live to the fullest. I've chosen to find positivity, look at, I wouldn't say I'm a positive Patty all the time, but look at life, glass half full. And that brought me into New York, where I decided to use the body that they said I'd never become a runner. I'd walk weirdly. I used that same body to run, to become a dancer. I moved to New York, came here for college, pursued my career. And shortly after, as many young people, whether you're transitioning high school to college to adulthood, or somewhere in between, it was intimidating. I knew, that quote unquote stereotype, Edith, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere kind of thing.
Yeah.
I thought about that often. But as I was trying to navigate my career and figure out ultimately what did I want to do, it was really challenging. Someone who comes, again, from a small family, we didn't have a multitude of resources where I could go to every networking event post-college or during my senior year, or, study abroad, because we weren't financially stable like that, in that capacity. And so what I decided to do was, I was out here hustling. I was meeting friends. I was going on castings. I decided to go to a modeling agency, got signed to Wilhelmina. My first interview, I took my dancing skills. I needed to make money because I didn't want to be a starving artist in New York City. And I started dancing for the New York Knicks at this time, really getting familiar with the NBA. I started dancing with Beyonce, Pitbull, just, again, being a boss about my life. And again,
just pause for a second. You started off talking about the fact that, your inner strength came from your parents, and they gave you that sense of self that helped you navigate through an uncertain time for you as you were coming to New York. You just mentioned that, you put yourself out there. Was that taking risks at that time? Was it important to connect with people who kind of took an interest in you and positioned you for some of these things? Or did you just go out and fall into it?
I don't know if I fell into it. I always say your career comes one or two ways. Either you've known since you were a kid, or you lean into what people tell you you're good at. And so I think I did the latter, of leaning in really to like what people told me I was good at. At first, I thought I was going to be a dancer, and then I started leaning into the advice of friends, of professors, and asking for help. So there was no way that I was going to make it alone, which is why that frustration was there, of knowing that where decisions were being made, or where I could network and meet my fairy god mentor, I might have a chance in this city. And it was, I will say, taking risks. I mean, the ultimate thing I look back and saying, the ultimate thing that happened was, I was going to decide to fight for my life, knowing that the risk of putting myself out there at 9 years old was dying. So I don't think anything compares to that.
That's pretty significant. Yeah. No other risk is as great. That's a great point.
Yeah. And so, I mean, yes, being embarrassed is a risk of getting a no, but I'm still here. And so that's how I look at my life, is like, I know that there's a rebound. And so again, in this moment, I decided to take all of the information that I had learned of trying to navigate these careers, auditioning, and I created Love Squad. This frustration, this lack of resources. And I said, I don't want many women, young women, to go through what I go through. If I can offer any insight to how to, I would do that. And so I created a website. I started inviting people out. And this was the turning point to me of why I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's not in my blood. I do not come from a long line of entrepreneurs. But it was this moment where, when I did my first Love Squad event, partnered with people in the city, young girl trying to figure it out. Again, very little money to make this happen. Called in my friends. And it was this event where we opened up our invite. At this point, I probably had like 3,000 people on Instagram. Open up the invite list. And
Allie, how many do you have now? I'm just curious.
Now I probably have 350,000. Yeah, just about under 400,000 followers. Yes. Yeah. So I've grown a lot of mistakes. But it was in this moment, Edith, where we opened up the invite list, and it sold out in 15 seconds. And it was a free event. Love Squad events are either free, low to no cost. We're either looking at a free event or $25 to make sure you show up in the snow. And that was the moment where it sold out, 50 people in 15 seconds, 75-person wait list. And that was the moment where I was like, you know what? People want information. I don't have all the answers. I know people like Edith Cooper who may, and I can bring them into the table for a low to no cost to help our community and to really, again, subside that frustration of feeling like you can't afford information because it's so critical, so vital, but so expensive, that there's an alternative to get that caliber of information, of wisdom, of insight at Love Squad.
When you talk about Love Squad, you talk about how important it is to empower yourselves through conversations, to educate yourself, to motivate yourself, and to inspire not just yourself, but others. I've never heard you speak about Love Squad when you don't talk about giving more than you get. Why is that so important to you and the culture of Love Squad?
Well, I truly believe that the catalyst for change is conversation. Everyone listening right now, you can remember one of your parents or guardians having a talk with you about something. You can remember the words that they say when they're not there. A lot of times parents, and I think I told you this, so a lot of parents think once their kids go away or move away, they forget all the things that their parents said, and it's not the case. We can right now find a voice of our mom, our dad, our guardian, our grandpa, our Mima in our heads. And so the voices never go away, and that's through conversation. So the catalyst for change is conversation. And I know if we create space, people will come, have a seat at the table, and engage in meaningful, life-changing conversations. And that to me is worth more than most things. So I think that this kind of, you give more than you take. If you continue to give information on how you got where you are, then the next set of leaders are only going to be better. And we want the world, quote unquote, to be better every generation, right? So what is our part? And most of us are like, well, I'm too small. I don't have anything. No one cares about me. And it's like, don't take the defeatist attitude. Something that you have to offer is having conversations, providing insight, sharing your story, because that sparks curiosity, creativity, and of course, most importantly, change.
You know, listening is a big part of what you've described as well. And hearing about other people's perspectives is really critical. One of the things, Ali, you and I bonded on, and there were so many things. I mean, if you really think about it, think about the two of us. We are from different generations. I took the path of going through finance to entrepreneurial efforts. Ali took the path of being a dancer and rising and leveraging her experience. But we come to this common place, and this is the thing that struck us immediately, that we both have a deep, passionate focus on creating communities where people can thrive. I'm doing it with my daughter Jordan in the creation of Medley, where we take 8 individuals that we've really thought and carefully evaluated for the cohesion and the camaraderie that goes in the group with the coach. Coaching is something that is so hard to get. I get coaching because I'm in a position where I meet and I listen and I learn from people. Ali and I got together. She took out her notebook. I took out mine. That was the only problem. We were both taking notes so much that we kind of lost track of the general conversation. But we had that common ground. Why is that sense of community so important to one's perspective? And why have you made it the core foundation of who you are and what you want to do in this world?
So, and I can speak for me in terms of this concept of community. Growing up from the South, family from the South, even though we grew up in Miami, fellowship is really important. Going to church on Sundays, family coming over. And while I have a small immediate, my mom is one of 10. So we were exposed to what fellowship looked like in terms of not just in church service or on Sundays or at Mass, if you go to Mass, it was, or mosque, like any of those things. It was on Saturdays when our families came all to one aunt's house or to our house, and we cooked dinners, and we had that opportunity to learn from the elders, to learn and hear about those funny stories we all make fun of when I was a kid, I used to walk 20 miles to school. That is really important. Those things actually, you never forget them. As much as we laugh and we enjoy them and we make fun of them when you're not around, we never forget them. And so I think that it's embedded culturally for me as like knowing that family is so important. And then when you move to New York City, knowing that you can create your own family, they don't have to just be blood relatives. You can create friends of families. You're cultivating your community, your love squad. You're putting people around you to not only share wisdom and insight, but that, yes, you can laugh with and make fun of them when they're not around. And I think that that's most important. I always say too, with community, many of you that are business owners, entrepreneurs looking to start a business, working on your side hustle while you're at your daytime job, the most important information that's so vital and usually so expensive is crowdsourcing. And you don't think of these two as being synonymous, but they are. Your community, your inner circle, your outer circle, your followers, they're all vital information that if you hired an external company to come in and provide and do tests, it's crowdsourcing. And that will cost you a lot of money. So building up that community is really important. So you have honest feedback loop. You're able to tap in for advice once again, and continue to create that conversational change, like that conversational change is what I mean. Like it's an opportunity for me to give a little bit, you to give a little bit, and we all get something.
I hear you. I hear how important it is to leverage your universe, to gain the knowledge that you don't have, to gain connections and access that you may not naturally be inclined to do. But I'm also therefore hearing that in order to be able to best do that, you've got to really cast your net pretty wide in terms of the people that you're interacting with. I've heard you say, and I would agree, that if you spend your time with just the same, you are missing out on so much opportunity to learn and to grow. And I think this is something particularly important now where, people just haven't really taken the time to learn and educate themselves about the Black experience, and we're seeing the results of that. So how important has it been to you to go from, being a dancer to a Knicks dancer to a public spokesperson and a CEO to really get outside of your comfort zone with respect to the people that you call your squad, so to speak?
Yeah. So the reality, you touched on something that was really important that I wanted to just highlight. And this is something that I've been talking about. When I started Love Squad, the mission, everyone, you learn, you got to have your branding on point. You need to have your tagline, your mission statement. And one of the things that stuck out for me is as a Nick City dancer, going into rooms to audition, going into rooms to interview, wow. Usually I'm one of one. And I know my privilege, right? In colorism, I'm aware. And I wasn't too sure that maybe those on the other side of the table judging who should get the job was aware. And so it's all kind of coming to light. When I created Love Squad, I said, you know what? I want you to walk into a Love Squad event and I want you to feel like you belong. I don't want it to be all homogenous and you walk in and you feel like, ooh, I don't fit in here. Everyone looks the same, or everyone does the same thing, or they're all the same age. And so when I also look at my own inner circle, my community that I lean into, I want to make sure that diversity is there. We always say the best teams that have the best ideas and go far is not only when they work together, but most importantly, when they're diverse. And I talk about that in race and culture and religion, because that's the only way we're going to really gain true perspective internally and externally. And so when I look at Love Squad, that was so important and ingrained because I knew what it felt like to be an outsider. When I go now to look at my Instagram feed, when I look at the materials that I engage with, this concept of making sure that it's diverse, I often hear, well, I only go to events, where it's in my own hometown and people just naturally just look like me. I can't just move away. And I think it's okay. That's fine. No one's telling you to do that. But diversity in content and consuming content is so important in that you have control over who you follow, in the media that you consume, in the books that you read, in the podcasts that you listen to. And so absolutely. I often engage in conversations. We had a Love Squad meeting this morning and making sure that my team diversifies the content they're consuming. Any piece of literature, making sure that your kids grow up and there's a bookshelf and it's a diverse group of authors. Your podcast list, the same thing, your music taste. And it's introducing these unfamiliarities for us to get comfortable with change. No one comes in, not even me, saying, I'm the most confident, I'm cool with taking risks, I feel good every day. No, I'm scared a lot. I mess up words, as I have done even in this interview. Sometimes I have to correct myself. But yes, putting myself out there, broadening, to your point, broadening my ability to network. Not everyone's going to be your best friend and not everyone's meant to be. but making sure you're having meaningful conversations, because one thing that's unanimous is that everyone wants to be heard and everyone wants to be seen, no matter what you look like, where you're from. And so that's what networking truly is. That's what building your squad truly is all about. It's not about your besties for life. It's introducing that concept of diversifying your content consumption, your engagement with those at parties, at events, at work.
There we go. I mean, that is really, those are really important suggestions. You talked about how you're not perfect. Although I have to say, I've done some of your classes and you look pretty good to me. But tell us about a situation where you actually didn't get it done, and in your experience with that, and how'd you keep moving forward?
So those experiences happen every day. I will be completely transparent. I think I listened to a podcast a long time ago, and there was a quote that said, and I'm going to butcher it, so forgive me, but it was basically, from the voice of the lowly come the truth. And to me, that really hit home, because what you see on Instagram and what you see in videos that, Edith and I putting on our best purple and best purple lip and curly hair.
It's totally a coincidence. Like, we did not talk about it. It's just, although I feel pretty good that I chose the same colors as Allie Love, but I'm just saying.
It is like my Sundays with love color, purple. It's also the color of royalty. The color of power. We're sovereignty. But with all those things, in terms of not being perfect, is that I do go through that same emotional cycle mentally and internally. And I think for me personally, going through prayer is really important, making sure that I pray. It helps me stay grounded. Some people meditate. Some people have to talk to their mom. Some people talk to their plants. Whatever works for you, works for you. But what I will say is that I feel like there's a miss every day. Most of us who want many things feel like we're missing out on something. And to me, I have a secret weapon. My boyfriend, Andrew, is someone who is pretty grounded, and he helps me reconcile a lot of disconnects that I'll have. And being able to talk that through with someone who has my best interest at hand, someone who can see a bigger picture when I'm so in the forest, literally. It's really important. So I think for me, in terms of a big miss, they have been many. In terms of not getting an audition that I wanted, or not getting a podcast interview that I wanted, or making me feel like, when I wake up, Love Squad should be bigger than what it is. Many of us get caught up in that we should have a bigger title. Our company should be doing X amount in revenue, and it's just not there yet. And it's almost like, for me, I have to catch myself. Maybe my first thought is that negative thought, but my second thought I'm in control of. And my third thought I'm in control of. And so it's taking control of those second, those third, and maybe if it takes three chances, maybe that fourth thought. And so it's important to me to make sure that I'm not feeding myself that narrative, that what Love Squad was meant to be is what it's meant to be, and it's good enough. And if I hop on the bike and I tell you in a hip hop pop ride that you're good enough and I'm proud of you, and those are the same things I have to say to myself. So yeah, one of the biggest things for me is hiring. I'm not good at hiring. You tell me one story, Edith, about how you're going to work hard and you're going to do this, and I'm going to believe you and I'm going to hire you. And I'm like, great, now here's criteria. Here's your work hours. Just get it done. I'm not someone who's going to micromanage. I believe you. I trust you. Let's do it. And I have failed and learned many, many, many times. And so I had to outsource that, finding someone who has the ability and the skill set to do that. That has been a detriment to my business in certain capacity. We've lost time. We've lost revenue. Learning experience. So, and to me, that was a miss. Does it compare to how much we've been winning? No, we've been able to be a voice. We've been able to be a platform of resources, especially during Black Lives Matter, our turning point during COVID. We've been able to do all those things. To me, that's a bigger win than, okay, I kind of hired maybe one or two wrong people at a time.
Well, there's so many important points that you've just made. Make sure that you understand where the failing comes from, but and control your thinking and control next steps. Focus on the things that you control, because that's incredibly positive. Understand what you're great at, also what you're not great at. I would also encourage and get that expertise around you. I would really encourage everyone to take a look at the Love Squad website, because there's really important information on there that has been there for some time in response to the challenge of the current environment, Black Lives Matter, but also, that how do you navigate the workplace? articles on, connecting with others. One other question, and then I'm going to turn it to people who are listening to join this conversation. I'm often asked about how it is extraordinarily difficult to be Black. And, really it's from a good place of really trying to understand. And I have a lot of capacity for that, because I don't fail someone for not knowing. I fail someone for not wanting to know. And I've heard that in our conversations. But no doubt, there's something that's wrong with our society that we continue to have the same conversation. I'm often called to task for it. Like, okay, conversations are great, but what about action? What are the things that you could share with people on this conversation around specific things that you think we should be doing as leaders, as human beings, so that the conversation evolves towards better, as you've described it?
So I'm going to talk to all of us that are in the business industry. Maybe not the first time you've heard this, but this is, again, something that I live by. Structure plus strategy equals success. Structure plus strategy equals success. In order to grow, not only in your business, but as an individual, whether it's your mental, physical, or spiritual self, you want to look at that same kind of model. And here's the missing link, Edith. You mentioned it, is mobilization. Most people are good, like you said, at having conversations and talking through feelings. How do we take that next step? And the next step is basically drawing out this model and applying it as you would a project at work, as you would if you were on a deadline, as you would if your financial levity depended on it. And so with that, I will say, here's your structure. Again, diversifying your content feed, making sure that you're reading books. If you don't like to read and you don't have time because you got kids running everywhere and you're working from home, download an Audible, play a game with an Audible. I often will hop on my Peloton. I'll put on the Just Ride feature. I'll put on my podcast or my Audible book, and I'll ride for 2 hours working on my endurance training. I'm not telling y'all to ride for 2 hours, so don't get caught up and miss the boat of what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, you want to go ahead and map out, just as much as you work out, you want to go ahead and map out how often are you engaging in these materials. And this is not a just for June or July thing. This is, what does that look like for 2020? What's your list of books? What are your list of podcasts to engage with these materials? The more, again, we can lean into information, the more we'll stop having conversations and then understand how to mobilize. I think most people right now are at a place, and to your point, not that I fault them because I'm in the same position. We're in this phase of learning and potentially having the same conversations over and over. However, give yourself a timeline, structure, how many books, how many Instagram, how diverse is your Instagram feed? How diverse is your news feed? It is important to make sure that's also diverse for all of us. And then from there, your strategy is, how often do you engage with these materials? Just as much as you work out and every Monday, Wednesday, you're doing strength, and every Thursday, Saturday, you're doing cardio, please put that much emphasis and awareness and strategy and structure around engaging with materials around anti-racism, around white supremacy, around white privilege, around white fragility, around understanding what diversity truly means, understanding the difference between discrimination, prejudice, and racism, and how is it systemic. It's one thing, and this is what I will say that I found in crowdsourcing, is that we live in a culture and in a community that is all about the I. So most times you feel like you are just one person in this community or at this job or in this space. And you only work for the I. Like, I had to hustle for everything. And you made a point of correcting me a little subtly in this interview where you're saying, well, there are people that helped you to that place. And you're exactly right. There are always people. There are people that you network with, that you have conversations with. So instead of living in this, I gotta hustle, I gotta do this, well, I'm not a bad person. Let's frame the conversation a little differently. Take the I out of that and put we. And who are the we? And I think that that's what we want to look at. And that, again, equals success. That's the mobilization that we're looking for. That's the action. Structure, strategy, success. As much as you work on your fitness or what you're going to have for dinner, go ahead. Taco Tuesday, great. Every Tuesday, you also listen to something by a Black business owner or a Black content creator. It works.
You are pound boss. That's all I have to say. That is excellent. And I really appreciate you sharing that. So structure, strategy equals success. If you want something to happen, be deliberate, commit to it. And learning is a big part of that. One of the questions we have is about, how do you efficiently encourage leadership at work, or even friends, to work with unconscious biases and walk the talk. So once people, do the learning and do the homework, like in their day-to-day, what are the things that people should be doing when it comes to helping people understand their privilege and then check their privilege?
So this is, for me, it's two parts. One, no one, not any of us, no matter, again, what you look like, where you're from, wants to be checked all the time, right? That just doesn't feel good.
That's the point. Exactly.
And the opposite side of the spectrum, nor do you want to be walking on eggshells of like, am I saying I'm not going to say anything, right? So you don't want to check people all the time, but you also, as a person, don't want to be walking on eggshells. So you want to have a candid conversation of level setting. For example, when you all hold a meeting, you're going to say, in this meeting, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this. We're going to talk about these things. And then at this point, we'll break out into discussion. We'll circle back and we'll have an end date as coming back in August to make sure this is done. The same thing happens with if you have direct reports, if you're a manager, or with your manager. It's like put a one-on-one or your team meeting. If you have your all hands, make sure that's the question that comes up in the all hands. But just asking, how are we dealing with this? What is our company culture with, again, identifying incorrect behavior? Company culture is so important. And the reason I say that is because it is ability to level set. If you are a manager and you have people that are reporting to you, please, this is a great time to open up for dialogue. How do we correct each other? We want to be, of course, mindful and aware, but we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do our best, but we're all going to make mistakes. So how do we correct those mistakes? And what does that sound like to us as a group? What is that culture for the company culture? And I think that that's you being self-aware, that's you being company aware, culturally aware, and community aware. We do it with our families. When your kid says something, you say, oh, we don't talk like that. You can ask for that, but say, please. And it's not that, again, we don't want to correct those people. We don't want to correct adults at work, but we also want to make sure that we're not, we don't want to stand for making sure that people are using code. Like none of these things we want to just fall by the wayside. We don't want to comply for the sake of embarrassing ourselves or someone else. So it's just figuring out, how do I correct you? How would you like feedback? How often? How important is this? Can we make, again, going back to that structure plus strategy equals success? Can we get on a timeline? Maybe there's a touch base in the beginning every week, a team meeting, a one-on-one with someone, whoever's in charge, your leadership position, your leadership. And if you don't feel comfortable going to leadership right away, completely understandable, would encourage on all hands or making sure that these questions come up in the feedback loop. And please, making sure if they do not give you an answer and you say go, they always say go to your manager. Go to your manager, follow those kind of that feedback, and then put it back in the questionnaire. These are things that are really important. We also do quarterly reviews, yearly reviews, annual reviews. When they ask what can we do as a company better, anti-racism training, diversity inclusion training that is ongoing, making it a part of the curriculum that leadership has to, when they go in there for their evaluation, how diverse is your team? That's really important. And not that we want to rely on tokenism. How diverse is your hiring culture, your hiring staff? Allow that to be some of the feedback. Have a couple points at a time, make it digestible, because that's the only way people can, just all of us in terms of feedback. I talk so fast, but again, that my rate.
We have a lot of territory to cover. I think we might have to do this again because there's a lot to cover here.
Yes, I do have a lot. My word rate is fast, but my idea rate is slow. Structure, ask questions, make them digestible, and keep asking until you get an answer.
So, but I really do want to highlight and reinforce some of the things that Ali highlighted. First of all, it is important to make sure that people know that it's okay not to know, but it's also important for them to explore. So I appreciate you checking me on my language about checking someone, because that's a confrontational kind of exchange. And it's really probably not going to get that person to say, I'm coming back at it. And there's nothing in terms of, isn't about trying to figure out how to connect and communicate and work with other human beings. I can't think of many things. And so we all have to figure out how to make sure that those conversations are productive and intentional and leave people walking away with, I hadn't really thought about that. I think it's also really important to stress the significance of community, not just in the workplace, but outside, particularly in this time where we all people of color are being asked to really sort of make sense of it all and to share our experiences, which is really important. Let's continue to leverage each other, because it's important. You know, it is incredible for me to see now, and I've seen it before, the people who have been working at organizations for 6 months are now getting called by the CEO to talk about their experience as a person of color. I'm telling you, that is awesome. What we've got to do is to help people get prepared to pivot or to expand those conversations to, and oh, by the way, this is who I am. And oh, by the way, I'd love to continue these conversations about a broader set of things, not only about the culture of being Black at the organization, but let's keep talking about excellence and what it takes to be successful, because I want your job, or I don't. But we've got to get people to have more of these active conversations. Ellie, when do you rest? There's a couple of questions here about time management and productivity, and based upon all the things we've talked about, you know, you're really like busy. How do you get through it in a positive way? That's another thing that people are really interested in. So that's the second part of the question. Incredibly productive, incredibly focused, and very positive and energized. Help us figure out that formula.
I will say I don't drink coffee, so now everyone hates me. I drink matcha once in a while, but I will say working out is really important to me. So I tend to work out. I'm a morning worker-outer. It does make me feel good to start my day. Yeah, there are some days it makes me tired. I get it. You know, Tabata Tuesdays is a tough day. But in reality, there are many times I'm tired. I will say I go to bed at 9:30, y'all. So my day,
another common ground. I hope all in my family are listening. I'm not the only one who goes to bed early. Early.
My mom growing up, Edith, when I was in high school, my dad used to literally like it's 9 o'clock, Monday Night Football song would come on. He let me watch that, and then I go to bed, even in high school. So it's something that has stuck with me. Do I like a good night out and having dinner night on the town? Yes, once in a while I can stay up and party with the best of them. But for the most part, I think I compartmentalize what is what. I tend to use the days of the week, just like I talk about Taco Tuesday. On Tuesdays are being my hardest days. I know that I'm going to get up early. It's going to be a little later in terms of going to bed at 10, and I'm going to get most things done. And the reason I say that is most times we come off the weekend, people find their vibe on Monday. I just notice a trend, a pattern, and people are now sending emails and responses from Friday and the weekend. And then Tuesday is my day to give all the responses, do the research, all of those things. Wednesday, I take a break. It takes time to people to get back to you. Thursday, I do that, and I only work on Friday morning. I am a person who solely believes that Fridays are not meant for the work week, and we should have Fridays always. Sincerely, like it just doesn't make sense to me. So I do have some guardrails around how often I work, but when I do, I sit down, I'm focused, and I get it done. And like I mentioned, there are many things that I will multitask. Like I said, listening to a podcast while I work out, listening to a book while I work out, to make sure that I am doubling up a little bit. I won't have a meeting while I'm working out, although I won't say that's near impossible for me, but I might. But for the most part, I think it's finding those times. Sundays are my rest day. I do teach on Sundays, but Sundays are my days to I love Sundays. It's my day to go to church, whether it's, right now we're in a pandemic, so online, and really focus on those things. And also one last thing is when I wake up, I give myself a call to action. Some people call it setting your intentions if you're into meditation, but on my daily dose of love on my Instagram, I've been doing these in the mornings, lives around 7. And basically I get up and I say, there are 3 things that make us complete. It's our mental, our spiritual, and our physical. And most of us, Edith, can understand when we are out of shape physically. You're like, oh, I'm out of breath, or, oh, I'm overweight, or whatever the case may be. There's some indication. But most of us are not aware when we are mentally or spiritually out of shape or broken. And that makes up who we are completely. And so what I have done and that I've changed since we've been shelter in place is that I focused on what is my call to action those days, whether it's making sure that I spend 5 minutes of doing some of those things. Spiritually, I make sure I pray. I meditate once in a while, not often. Mentally, making sure I engage with some materials or resources that feed my mind, or take a workshop of some capacity. And then physically making sure I work out. But we often forget. We think mentally, well, we're at work, so we're working out mentally. That's not the case. Maybe there's a game, like one of those brain games that you do.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be super high level, but I found personally that I have a greater sense of awareness. I feel grounded. I feel in control. There are days I do feel out of control because, you know, we are in our houses a lot, but for the most part, I do feel like I'm more grounded. And so again, I set a call to action and intention, if you so will, for those three things. Most times it's the same thing. And it's create a greater sense of awareness for me.
So I know we're running out of time, but I think it's interesting that we're almost out of time and we're just talking about Peloton. You know, it's sort of like yesterday's Allie's priority. Having said that, you have been a significant part of creating the culture at Peloton. You are the leading instructor. When you're on that bike, you make every single participant, whether it's, you know, a young person or just trying to like hang on, feel like you are talking to them. I think I said that the first time we met. Like, wow, you know, I feel like I know you because I've been on your bike or on my bike. Tell me about how you arrived at Peloton and how you developed this center of gravity around the conversations on commitment and community and being the boss, because you did it from within. And I think that's something that we all have to recognize and understand is a skill set.
Yeah. So yes, Peloton, I've been an instructor now 3.5 years. I was not an instructor, like that was not a part of my title prior to Peloton. They were looking for a new cycling instructor. They called me in because of like visibility, hosting for the Nets and being an Adidas global ambassador. I came in, did a 15-minute audition, and then they offered me the job like a day or two later. And I had never, I'd probably taken a Peloton class once, and I'd never thought about being a cycling instructor. And so in the beginning, when they did offer me the job of doing it, I was like, I probably shouldn't do this because I don't want to be an instructor. I don't feel like I have anything to offer. And once I learned about Peloton, I was totally in awe of them. And I was like, I'm not sure that I could add much value to this company because I'm just not an instructor. And most of their instructors are instructors. And so it was me having a couple meetings, understanding even more of what Peloton means. It's the intersectionality of media, of technology, and of fitness. And so I fell in love with the fact that these classes are live. You have 4 to 5 cameras in a studio. You have a producer downstairs. I'm able to talk in real time. And then most importantly, that the community was there supporting and available and wanting to be better. And so to be completely transparent, I took the job. I was really excited, but also nervous on if I could deliver, if I could measure up. And being a Peloton instructor is a coveted position. They are the best instructors in the world. We are the best instructors in the world. And I say that because there's a level of humanity that comes along with that job that is very transparent and translate through the screen of the bike or through the app. And it wasn't until I had been there for a couple months, I was trying to figure it out. They trained me and I was still trying to figure it out, that it clicked for me. I was actually having a conversation with Andrew, my partner, and he and I were talking in terms of creating classes. And it was then that this level of humanity clicked for me because he said, what is the one thing that everyone wants to feel, no matter, again, who you are, how old you are, where you live? What is the one thing we all want to feel? We want to, and I said it earlier, feel seen and feel heard. But there is a moment in that connects both of those things. It makes you feel good when you're seen and when you're heard. Everyone wants to feel good. You hop on a ride. Yeah, you want a good workout. Yeah, you want to, if you're looking to lose weight or, get your mind right or just get your workout in, whatever you're there for. But most importantly, the relatable factor, the connective tissue for everyone, no matter how uniquely different you are, so you want to feel good. And so that's when it clicked for me. I started making sure that my content spoke to the fact that we all, including me, just want to get on this bike or get on this mat and feel good about ourselves, our mistakes, our day, how tired we are, how overwhelmed, how crazy the kids are. We all want to feel good. And I created the Feel Good Ride, literally a ride that says, you're going to feel good. And so it was there that it clicked. And I see it in my fellow instructors, how they understand that we're not perfect. We're real. We make mistakes. And if we're this way, we know you're this way. We have bad days. We know you have bad days. We're all in this together. And so we are no different than anyone else that saddles up. The only thing is, yes, we're talking while we're riding. That is a big deal. But for the most part, I think that's what has been a sticky factor, the level of humanity that comes and translates through the screen for my fellow instructors, but also down from my CEO, to our members of our company, to our community. Our community is vastly different, and we want to make sure the decisions we're making, the content we're offering, make sure it's diverse enough to look like the community we want to continue to build and cultivate. And so I will say Peloton is definitely the best company in the world, and it is incredible to be a part of. And maybe I'm biased, but sincerely, I'm truly proud of our leadership there, of what we're building, of how we are always continuously innovative in our thought, in our approach, in our content, and what that looks like. And yeah, and we listen to our community. We hear you, we see you, we want you to feel good.
Well, I have to say, I say it's a pretty great company if they have you as someone who's inspired and driving with them. And so, unfortunately, and I think I speak for everybody who's been on this conversation to it, it's going to end, and it's ending now. But I really just want to thank you, Ali, for using your influence and platform to really make change and to really celebrate and champion diversity and get people to really deeply understand the significance of race and empathy and culture, and how important it is to gather with other people and connect to make that happen. And as an aside, you make me smile like almost no one else does. You're infectious, you're driven, and you are going to change the world through Love Squad and everything that you do. So thanks for joining. Check out all that Ali's doing. Please look at withmedley.com. It is very much focused on similar things that we talked about today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.